Welcome to Dave's Model Workshop. G'day, I'm Dave. Welcome to part 2 of my series on Wingnut Wings. Are they worth it? So I'm currently building a Wingnut Wings Fokker E.IV, and it's a cute little bugger. Yes, the kit was provided to me by HobbyLink Japan, so I just wanted to say thank you to HobbyLink Japan. So yes, are Wingnut Wings kits worth it? So in my last episode I showed you the build of the cockpit, which was great, and my overall feedback was it's bloody lovely to build, but it's daunting and it's a bit nerve-wracking at the same time. There's so much detail. Like, it's lovely, but there's so much detail. It's not something to be entered into lightly. So today we're moving on to the engine and the fuselage, and I've made a start on the engine already. And my comments, if you haven't watched my previous one, I'd recommend you probably go back and watch it, even if you only watched the last 5 minutes. That's where the sort of, the summary was. So I've started building the engine already, and it's a beautiful, beautiful engine. It's, really detailed. It's even better if you get focus. Really, really, really detailed. My only real issue is the two halves of the engine go together. So there's two separate engines here, and the two halves go together, and you can see this seam line here. Don't look at my horrible fingernails. You can see the seam line here. And it's really hard to clean that up, and you can actually see where it doesn't quite meet up. And I think that might be because I've had to sand away a little bit, because that was the mounting points to the sprue, was on the interior surface. If I show you the instructions, you'll get more of an idea of what I'm talking about. So you have to put two halves together to make each of the engines, E10 and E2. And the cleanup on the flat interior surface of E10 and the flat interior surface of E2, I think is what's given me this slightly annoying little tiny gap in places like this, just here. So that's a bit of a pain in the ass. So I'm going to try and fix that with perhaps some sprue, some spare styrene. Just put it in there, shave it really fine, put a bit of glue over it, and hopefully that will cover up the worst of that and hide the worst of it. Tiny bit disappointing, but it's possibly my fault. Other than that, building the engine has been an absolute pleasure. There are some ridiculously fine pieces. So all these little guys here, this thing, this thing, this thing, this thing, this thing, this thing, all those little sort of rods, for want of a better word, they look ridiculously frail and fragile on the sprue, but I've found so far that Wingnut Wings plastic is pretty forgiving. So when you trim it, they don't snap. I'm going to do one here now and watch the thing snap properly on camera. But so far, they've been awfully forgiving. So you have to be careful, but you saw how that bent. On a lesser manufacturer's kit, that would have just snapped and this would have flown away into the distance, but now it's come loose. Just need to trim that piece, and it's not too brittle, I guess, is the main thing. It's got a bit of flexibility, a bit of give in it, but it's not sloppy and floppy either. So I really, really rate that. The other thing I love is that on really detailed bits, they give you a bit of extra plastic. So you can see here, like, there's the sprue mount, and it's there. It's about 1 millimeter wide, and then you've got about another millimeter either side. That's just a little bit of forgiveness, a little bit of, it's not going to snap straight away, to clean it up on a pretty thin piece of edging. You can see it there. So you need that sort of edge to stay on that piece. It's just a nice piece of smart engineering, and I really admire that. Having built some kits lately that didn't have that, it's a bit of a pleasure. As for the fuselage, it's all good. My only concern here is just trying to tidy up these little, again, the sprue gates where it joins up to the sprue. Some of them are a bit tricky. I need to get my fine sandpaper out and sand away there, because using a sanding stick hasn't been very good for that. But the two halves of the fuselage go together rather nicely as a dry fit. Top surface, bottom surface. Bottom surface is designed to have an extra piece go into it. You can see there I still need to clean up there. But yeah, they go together very easily and pretty seamlessly, and there's an interesting little gate there that I like. I'm not quite sure what the thinking is, but I'm sure that there's a reason that it's got that little dog leg in it there, like that. So yeah, I'm going to paint the interiors of this, put the cockpit inside, and I'm sure 90% of that gorgeous, gorgeous detail on the cockpit is not going to be visible once it's all buttoned together. And that's just the way of it. It's a bit obsessive, but I quite like it. Alright, I'll keep on going. I have joined the two halves together, but look at this. Amateur hour. I put the elastic band around it before I put the glue on, and the glue has seeped up underneath the elastic band. The elastic band was down there, so I'm going to have to sand that away. It's really trying hard to get a very easy, perfect seam along the back spine there. You know, there was a bit of sanding to do to get rid of that slight gloss there, but yeah, bloody hell. Amateur. Rookie mistake. I don't blame the kid for that. That's just my own stupidity of putting the elastic band on first. Goes to show that even people who claim to be experts on YouTube can still stuff things up. Alright, time to fix that. I'm also a tiny bit concerned about this little missing join just here, that little sort of half-millimeter gap, but I think there are things that hide that, so I won't lose too much sleep about that until I read a bit further on in the instructions. Sanding time. I'm busy working on the engine, and it is a little tiny work of art. It's quite incredible. Try and get a bit of focus here for you so you can see it. But yeah, it's pretty amazing. Yeah, there we go, that's better. So all the little push rods for the tappets at the top of the pistons, I don't even know if that's the correct word. Yeah, really fine work, and not a single one of them, so every single one of these little tiny push rods, not a single one snapped, not one. That to me is pretty amazing when you look at the size of them. But yeah, cutting them off the sprue and then trimming them down, nothing snapped. It's pretty amazing. The only real disappointment I have is that you can see a bit of a moulding line along the edge of the pistons if you look closely. Let's see if we can get those on camera. So yeah, you can see one down the bottom just there. There's a little moulding line just here on that little piston down the bottom there. And so every single one of them has one of those moulding lines, and it's just a pain in the bum. So just there. And to try and cut those off, you'd lose all that little fine ridged detail. So I'm just kind of sucking it up and hoping that it's not too visible on the final one. I'm going to put a bit of an oil wash on this and sludge it up a little bit, and hopefully that will help a bit. But I have encountered my first issue that I had heard about with Wingnut Wings of if you paint things, the tolerances are so precise that if you paint things, it actually makes life hard for the final result. So this little sprockety thing goes onto this little T-shaped piece of pipe, I guess you'd call it. So it's not actually a round pipe, it's T-shaped. Hope you can see that there. And it's really hard. So I've painted the sprue. I haven't painted the pipe because I thought this might be an issue. And it's just really hard to get it onto that. I mean, pretty amazing cutting that little sprocket off the sprue. So I've trimmed it just here and somewhere around here. And the fact that all the teeth are still there is pretty incredible to me. Look at that. That's tiny. But yeah, because it's painted, I don't really remember painting the inside so much of the actual T-shape that's on it. But because it's painted, it's so hard to get on. I'm worried I'm going to snap it. So I'm just trying to gently push it on. But that's a... There we go. I've got it finally. But that's an example of Wingnut Wings. The tolerances are just so tiny. Okay, it's on. That's how it's meant to be in the instructions. I'll add that to the engine now. Lovely engine, but there's not a lot of room for error. But it's cool. Alright, back soon. I am working on my machine guns for the front of the kit, and they look amazing. Look at all the detail. Whoa, that's crazy. But then I've just found my first little annoying sink mark just here on both of these. Hope you can catch that there. Let's see if I can get that more obvious. Focus. So you can sort of see it. Oh, come on. Is that working? You can see my fingers clearly. So you can see the first little sink mark. Bang, finally got it. Right on the end of the machine gun, just here. Focus really hard on such tiny, tiny pieces. Shadow, does that help? Focus, come on. Oh my goodness. Ah, bang, got it. Okay, you can see it finally. Alright, so there's the sink mark at the end of the machine gun. So it's not a big deal, but it's the first one I've found that's actually impacted me. Am I disappointed? No, I can't say I am. But what I have found when I was looking at these pieces is, look at the detail on these tyres, oh my goodness. So they provide you with a low detail machine gun. Why anyone would use that rather than the photo etched pieces, I don't know. But check out the detail on these. That's so cool. The Continental Maker's Mark. All the detail. Love it. Love it. Am I becoming a fanboy for Wingnut Wings? I don't know, but I'm impressed. I'll always be a Tamiya fanboy at heart. Tragic but true. This is where I'm at after about 2 hours of sanding of the back here. So the fuselage seam ran right down the length of that, and I've spent a couple of hours sanding away at it. The sanding I've used is some 1200 grit sandpaper and then a microfine sort of spongy pad thing to sort of polish it a little bit. You can still see a little tiny, I'll try and get there, you can still see a little tiny mark where that glue was. Again, rookie mistake, can't believe it. But yeah, I've realised there's kind of a canopy section that covers up that, so the worst of the nastiness will be hidden, which is a good thing. But the rest of it, you know, it's a really obvious place to have a seam going down the middle of your fuselage. It's not so bad on the bottom, it's hidden by this quite clever fabric stitching piece that you glue in separately. So that kind of hides the worst of it, although there's a bit there I still need to clean up. Yeah, that definitely hides the worst of it, but on the top there, it's such a visible part of the aircraft. I'm going to draw a picture now, and I'll show you what I think would have been a better way to do it. Who am I to be telling Wingnut Wings how to do their job? I'm just some schlub, but I'll show you what I think would have been a better solution. There's probably an engineering reason why they didn't, but I'll show you. This is my amazing idea for what would have been a better cross-section, a better way to do this. So, rather than joining two C-shaped halves of the fuselage together, what if they had done it as two L-shaped halves of the fuselage, and then you wouldn't have that horrible seam line right down the middle of the top? It's just a thought. I don't know. There's possibly an engineering reason, but to me, it would have definitely solved the problem and saved me from 2 hours of sanding. Anyway, just a thought. The other cool things that I've been building, so I'm kind of jumping around a little bit. So, there's the engine, which I will go into more detail about. There are also these extra cool little spanned out machine guns. Let's try and get a zoom there. Look at that. It's pretty cool. So yes, I took the plunge last night and did the photo etched bending for the jacket around the barrel, and it's just a lovely, lovely little work of art. So there's two of these bad boys, and they're just lovely. Really like them. I haven't glued the ends on yet. I'm going to, but I'm going to paint them first because I'm a little bit worried. I'll zoom out again. Zoom, zoom, zoom. I'm kind of jumping around a little bit on the instructions, and I don't know if that makes me foolish or smart. The reason being, so on the instructions here, you build your machine guns, put these little end pieces on, but then it only works if you've put it into this front cockpit combing, part B5. It only works if you've put them into that first. I'm trying to keep that separate and paint it separately and add it to the fuselage separately, because otherwise it's going to be an absolute bastard to try and mask that off and paint it aluminium. So I'm hoping to keep that separate, paint my machine guns separately, slip them in through the holes in the combing, and so put them in through this piece here, and then attach whatever needs to be attached at the end, so that you get this final result. But yeah, I don't want to have to attach this and then paint it once the body's all together. I'm hoping to paint all the canvas parts of the fuselage and all the aluminium parts of the fuselage separately. That's my plan. Does it make me smart, or does it make me a sucker? I don't know. But yeah, I don't want to be adding these bits and these bits painted aluminium and then have to mask them. I'd rather paint them separately, put them all together, and then at the end it all comes together for me. You can see up here, part B13 is the piece that's going to hide the worst of my glue marks from before. So yeah, I'm planning, now I've got the fuselage, I'm going to paint the fuselage, bang bang bang. All I have to do then is mask the cockpit area, and then I'm going to paint the wings at the same time, paint the elevators at the same time, and those are the only bits I need to paint that colour. Oh, and the wheels. But yeah, I don't have to then try and go masking all this detail, which would have been a nightmare. Fingers crossed it's smart. Fingers crossed. Right, I'm going to do some airbrushing.